Lord Crowley Mesmer. Ring any bells? Me neither, but he's stolen the ancient magical artifact, the stone carrot, which led to Concrete Donkey on to create the Worms world eons ago. Or should that be eons ago?
Hello Internet, welcome to Games Done Wrongish. Today we will be taking a look at the PlayStation 4 titles granted via the November 2017 PlayStation Plus subscription model. The titles are Bound, Dungeon Punks and Worms Battlegrounds. Bound is a very pretty and relaxing game. You start out arriving at a beach playing as a pregnant lady. You stroll a little down the beach until you pause, sit down and take out what seems to be an old sketchbook or diary of some sort. From what I can gather, this is a reflection of childhood memories stored in a child's collection of drawings and scribbles. At this point you enter the main game. You now play as a ballerina type dancer in a very colourful dreamlike world that has lots of shifting geometry going on. Your character moves with elegance and grace, light on her feet and very methodical, which can be a joy to behold. You are very quickly advised by a queen or mother-like figure that this world is in turmoil and is being destroyed from within. It is down to you to try and seek help and stop this destruction. From then on you play a very artistic style of 3D platformer, moving around rhythmically while climbing ladders, sliding up and down ribbons and dancing to cover yourself in ribbons which wards off any harm that may come to you. There does not seem to be any way to attack or fight back, at least not in the opening few hours of the game. Your main aim seems to be to figure out how to get through each staged area while keeping yourself safe from the flying debris that may harm you. The geometry twists and turns as you move around in some parts. You can therefore find yourself walking on the ceiling of an area as it twists around you to become the ground. As the game progresses, you find yourself walking through past memories of what seems to be the pregnant lady's childhood. They revolve around family. While starting out simple with a meal at the table with the family, they turn into scenes of turmoil. They could be nothing more than family arguments that most normal families go through, but you get the sense that the child at the time is thinking that everything is their fault. This again is very normal childhood behaviour, and the game to me seems to be reflecting that the mind of a child works in a very different way to that of an adult. It is interesting and something I will go back to in order to find out how the story comes together. The game has 27 trophies to collect. 8 bronze, 13 silver, 5 gold and 1 platinum, for a total of 1,140 points. Overall, this game is very relaxing and a feast for the eyes. I recommend downloading it and giving it a try. Dungeon Punks is a side-scrolling beat-em-up style game akin to the old greats such as Golden Axe and Double Dragon. However, this game tries to infuse this with a role-playing type element in which you level up and upgrade your weapons and such as you progress. For me, it does not get any of these features right though. The side-scrolling elements feel too boxed in. There is not much room to maneuver in each section of the game, and the leveling up and upgrading your items quickly becomes more of a grind than a fun element. For instance, after completing the very first area, you are advised that the second area is best played between levels 2 and 4. You will likely have just hit level 2 from the first area, however you are going to need to upgrade a bit and level once or twice to complete the next one. This usually means that you need to start the next area and then escape when you start to become weak as a team. You play the game initially with 2 other teammates. These can be player controlled or AI controlled. I found playing with the AI to be frustrating. As with most AI partners in games, they generally run into far too many enemies with no sense of self-preservation and get themselves killed rather quickly. This then requires you to use any health potions you may have found to revive them, leaving you nothing to recover your own health when you run into trouble. A little later on you gain more heroes and then you start to be able to create a tag team. You choose a starting character for you and the 2 partners, and then you choose a 4th hero to be your tag team partner. You can then press circle at any time in the main playable areas to switch to the other member of your tag team. Each character has a standard attack that can be used at any time by pressing X. They also have magic attacks that can be used by pressing square and a direction on the D-pad. Which reminds me, for some reason this game is played only with the D-pad and cannot be played with the left analog stick. I have no idea why this is, but it is. Regardless, your tag team partner gains mana for your magic attacks while away. Mana can be generated by using your normal attacks on enemies. Once you have one or more bars of mana, you can use the magic attacks. These vary from character to character, each having multiple options available through the upgrade system. I played mainly as the dwarf. He can shoot out walls of fire or leap into the air, coming down with a thunderous crash. Those type of things. You travel around the world on an airship. Whilst on the airship, you could spend points upgrading or purchasing new magic attacks, selling or buying items, or arranging your party. Once all is set, you could speak to the captain to disembark on the next mission. The missions are split up into very small square-shaped areas around a small map. Each area will generally have enemies or an NPC quest giver to speak to gain an extra mission whilst you are there. There is not much to these areas, and after a short while they feel very repetitive and boring. The game has 29 trophies in total. It even has a platinum, which shocked me. There are 13 bronze, 9 silver, 6 gold and 1 platinum for a total of 1,185 points. Overall, this mismatch does not work for me. I feel the areas are too small, repetitive and restrict movement. The combat is very basic and mainly hacking away randomly until you charge enough mana to use a magic spell. I was playing solo with AI partners though, so this may be different with friends or siblings, but for me I don't think that would change much. As such, I cannot recommend it, but if you like what you see here, then feel free to give it a go. Worms is one of those game franchises that seems to have been around since the dawning of time. I have to admit, when I first saw this on the PlayStation Plus games list, I thought, oh, another Worms game. However, after playing it for a few hours, I was pleasantly surprised with what they have done with it. In this edition, there is an actual story campaign. It's a little silly, but it was bound to be in a Worms game. It is narrated by an obvious Lara Croft knockoff, named Miss Tara Pinkle. She is a self-professed wealthy woman that likes to raid tombs and steal ancient artifacts, leaving the tombs in a burning pile of rubble. She advises you that an evil man named Mesmer has stolen a stone carrot that has the power to mind control all worms on the planet, and it is down to you to stop him. The story campaign basically boils down to a large tutorial that allows you to learn how to use all of the different weapons and tools the worms have at their disposal later on in multiplayer. It is still a bit of fun and fairly enjoyable to play through. I have never played a story campaign in a Worms game before. There may have been one in previous titles, but for me this is the first time I have actually played one. Aside from the campaign, there is also a Worm Ops mode. This is a quicker and shorter way to learn how to use the weapons and items in the game. In this mode, you start each op with limited items. For instance, in the first op you have just the rocket launcher and a jetpack. You must use these two items to defeat all of the enemy worms on the map. They do not fight back on the first op, so it is fairly easy to do. However, you need to do it in a very fast time to gain stars and set record times. This mode I am kind of used to seeing in a Worms game. The previous games I played had something similar to provide you with a way to learn how to play the game. With those modes out of the way, we get into the main meat of a Worms game, the co-op and multiplayer. This is what I remember them for and what generally provides the most fun and replayability from these games. I thought I would be very familiar with this game mode going in, however, as I loaded it up I found that Team 17 had yet another surprise in store for me. Multiplayer also had two modes. They are Deathmatch and Forts. I had never seen Forts before, so this is what I tried first. In Forts you can play with 2 to 4 players, or solo with 1 to 3 AI opponents. As I do these overviews when my family are at school or at work, I was down to playing with the AI this time. When you have selected the number of players, you are then divided into 2 forts. If it's 2 players, then you have 1 player's team of worms in each fort. 4 players has 2 teams in each fort. The main aim is to defeat all of the worms in the opposing fort. You can use ranged weapons such as rocket launchers and airstrikes to destroy parts of the fort, allowing you to then get a shot at the worms. Or you can use ninja ropes and parachutes to try and land on their fort and attack them from within. Deathmatch is the Worms series bread and butter and where all of this stems from. It is what I was expecting from the game when I saw it listed, and after all that came before it, it did not disappoint. You start this mode choosing from 1 to 4 players. You can play 1v1, 1v2, 2v2, or a 3 and 4 player every man for themselves. Again, these can all be player controlled teams of worms or a mixture of player controlled teams and AI controlled teams. Before the game starts, the host of the match needs to choose a backdrop, which can be anything from a prehistoric setting to an ancient tomb-like setting. Once that is chosen, you can either create a battleground by placing land, water and open spaces around the map, or have one procedurally generated for you. Once you have your team set up and battleground chosen, you can all enter the battle and start attacking the opposing worms. Each worm in your team will be placed in a random spot around the map. You may be in an isolated part of the map or bunched up with a bunch of enemies from the other team or teams. Your aim is to choose the best weapon or item for your situation and surroundings. If you are enclosed and unable to enter the battle, you may want to use a blowtorch or other device to tunnel your way through to an open area. Instead, you may want to skip your turn, stay safe and wait to pick off the remaining worms after the fallout of the main battle. When surrounded by enemies close by, it is sometimes a good idea to drop a stick of dynamite and run away from it, leaving it behind to explode among a bunch of enemy worms. If you don't want to risk getting too close, you may opt to throw in a cluster bomb that will spread around, exploding in multiple directions and possibly weakening or defeating multiple foes. That or all directions miss your targets and one somehow hits you. That's what happens to me quite often. The winner is the last team or last worm standing. The game has 36 trophies in total to collect, 16 bronze, 12 silver, 7 gold and 1 platinum, for a total of 1,410 points. Overall, Worms is a great game to have on hand for any generation of gaming. With the holidays approaching, it is great to have something like this available if you have a bunch of people over and want to play a co-op or multiplayer game together. For me, you get the most out of a Worms game when playing couch co-op with one or more friends. The addition of the campaign mode, versus AI options and PSN support make this a great game to play solo too, so I do recommend adding it to your library while you can. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, then give it a thumbs down. But please try to leave some constructive feedback in the comments below this video so that I can try to make more enjoyable content for you in the future. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe by clicking on the icon in the middle of this screen. To learn more about the channel, you can click the What is Games Done Wrongish video on the left, or you can visit my website at www.gamesdonewrongish.com. Thank you, and until the next time, goodbye.